Ahead on Q2 in the eye of the storm.
Today I lost power at about 9:30 a.m. this morning. Still have cell phone reception, no water. The water was turned off.
A quickly changing and life-threatening hurricane barrels down on Grenada, leaving a Billings woman stuck on the island. Plus, the U.S. Supreme Court delivers another major ruling this morning, one that has former President Trump celebrating. We'll have the details. And thread by thread.
Back in, the days gone by, people sewed to save money. Now today, people sew for the hobby.
One Billings business has become a sewing staple for 3 decades. The MTN 430 News starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us on this Monday. I'm David J. A Billings woman finds herself stuck on a Caribbean island being hit by a Category 4 hurricane. Hurricane Beryl made landfall on Grenada this morning with dangerously heavy winds and rain pummeling that area, some of those winds reaching 150 miles per hour. The National Hurricane Center warning of a potentially life-threatening storm surge from this system, which went from a tropical depression to a major hurricane in just 42 hours. Hurricane Beryl is the first Atlantic hurricane on record to reach a Category 4 this early in the season. Ava Stanemeyer, a Billings woman, was enjoying the extended vacation on the island when the hurricane hit. She caught up with our Haley Monaco today as she braced for the full brunt of the storm's impact.
I had no idea it was going to develop into anything like this.
Roaring through the Windward Islands. Category 4 Hurricane Beryl is making history as the strongest known hurricane to pass through this region of the Caribbean.
I originally was staying at like a little villa right by the ocean when I came here. I've been here for 2 weeks.
Billings resident Ava Stanemeyer was taking a long vacation, visiting friends who live in Grenada, and first heard about the life-threatening storm late last week.
I believe it was Thursday, and it started off as a tropical storm, and I didn't think anything of it. I'm originally from Florida, so this certainly isn't my first rodeo with hurricanes at all, and I thought nothing of it. I thought it would pass or it would continue to just be a tropical storm.
But it took just 42 hours for the winds to intensify. By Sunday, the storm had strengthened to a Category 3 hurricane, and on Monday morning, it made landfall.
No water. The water was turned off, mandatory last night at 9 o'clock. There was a curfew set in place at 7 p.m. last night. The only people that can drive or really do anything here is just first responders, police and whatnot. They have roads blocked.
Stanemeyer was able to move inland Sunday morning, grabbing water and food on the way for the time being. But the island is small, only 21 miles long and 12 miles wide.
There's just a lot of high wind, a lot of rain. My room is flooded currently. There's probably about 2 inches of water in here,
making it impossible to completely escape the storm's wrath.
So this is what the room looks like. I have the flooding here. Pray for everybody, all the people of Grenada, all the local people, those that aren't local, just everybody, on the islands, all the islands here in the Caribbean that are certainly being affected.
Stanemeyer's flight back here to Montana is scheduled for Wednesday, although she knows getting out of there may be easier said than done. In Billings for MTN News, I'm Haley Monaco.
Well, thankfully, no hurricanes for us in Montana and Wyoming, but we have some more thunderstorms. Had a couple severe thunderstorms earlier in the day, some more showers and storms pushing over the Cody area. We had a gust of 59 miles an hour earlier in Graybull about 2 hours ago. Within the last hour, we've had gusts between 30 and 40 in Sheridan, Wyoming, with some light amounts of rain and some spotty showers and some isolated thunderstorms in central and southern Montana. But we have more chances for some unsettled weather going forward. Our forecast for the next couple days, the 4th of July, and the next 7 days too, coming up in just a few minutes.
Republican U.S. Senate candidate Tim Sheehy is stepping down as CEO of the company he founded. Bridger Aerospace releasing the news this morning, saying Sheehy is resigning as CEO and from the board of directors. Bridger is an aerial firefighting company based in Belgrade, was started by Sheehy in 2014. And reason for resigning, Sheehy said in a statement, the company needs fully focused CEO during the fire season. Bridger says it has been preparing for this possible departure since he announced his campaign. Sam Davis, the company's chief of staff, will take over as interim CEO. Former President Donald Trump is hailing today's decision by the Supreme Court on presidential immunity. The High Court ruled that former presidents are immune from criminal prosecution for their official conduct, but not for unofficial acts. Nicole Skanga is outside the Supreme Court with more.
The Supreme Court issued a landmark decision on presidential immunity in a case that directly affects former President Trump. In a 6-3 ruling, the conservative majority divided presidential conduct into 3 categories. Official acts that are part of the president's core constitutional powers, for which the president has absolute immunity. Other official acts outside the president's exclusive authority have presumptive immunity, and there is no immunity for unofficial acts.
On the majority side, they, I think, very legitimately were concerned about the threat of future presidents possibly being prosecuted.
The ruling affects special counsel Jack Smith's prosecution of Trump for his alleged efforts in the overturning of the 2020 election results. The case now goes back to the lower court.
He's going to take a big scissors to the indictment, and he's going to cut out any counts that relate or could be even close to relating to official acts.
In a scathing dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor warned the ruling insulates the commander-in-chief from criminal prosecution, no matter how he uses his official powers, even if it's for an assassination, military coup, or a bribe.
I think the lens she was coming from is no person is above the law.
Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in his majority opinion that no president is above the law, and the court ultimately rejected Trump's argument that he has absolute immunity unless impeached by the House and convicted by the Senate. With just over 4 months until the presidential election, Monday's ruling makes it highly unlikely Trump will face trial in the election interference case before then. Nicole Skanga, CBS News, the Supreme Court.
Election season is kicking into full gear with November now just 4 months away. And this election is expected to take patriotism and protecting democracy to new heights. Stephanie Liebergen looks at how democracy is polling among Americans.
Both President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump have said saving democracy is a critical issue this election cycle.
Our democracy is really on the line. Listen to the things he said. They asked him what happens. Is he going to accept the loss? He said it depends. And then he said if he loses, there's going to be a bloodbath.
Joe Biden is a great threat to our democracy. He's a tremendous threat to our democracy. His incompetence is the #1 reason. Also, he uses the Justice Department, the FBI, to go after his political opponent, happens to be me.
A Georgetown University poll from March found 81% of Americans think our democracy is under threat, but Republicans and Democrats disagree on why. About 2/3 of Trump supporters say President Biden and Democrats in Congress are threatening democracy.
We cannot have a country where you get to prosecute your political opponents instead of persuading voters.
But over 80% of respondents with a favorable view of President Biden said Trump and MAGA Republicans are the threat.
It shows the violence of Trump and reminds us that he'll use violence against anyone who stands in the way of his megalomania and greed.
So where do we go from here? Experts say it's important to hold people accountable for their actions. A steady stream of the truth can help break the hold disinformation has on some pockets of the country. If the public views their government as effective, confidence in democracy can grow. One thing most Americans seem to agree on, the future of American democracy is an important factor in deciding who to vote for in November. Stephanie Liebergen, Scripps News, Washington.
Thread by thread, one Billings business has thrived for 30 years now. And Sewing Center West, a supply sales and sewing machine repair shop off of 24th Street West, is still going strong today. In tonight's Positively Montana, our Marcus Kakova meets with the married owners who reflect on the threads of an industry that has kept them happily bound for 3 decades.
When you look at a sewing machine store, it just kind of looks like a bunch of, tombstones.
What is a tombstone but something to recollect upon?
Someone else's hands have been, working with it. And it's kind of neat just to, sit with a machine that's got history.
I see my life. I grew up on a farm, and that's all I ever did was sew. Sat on my mom's lap. I sat on my grandma's lap. She taught me how to quilt, and so they're near and dear to me.
Well, very cool. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
And,
Yeah, thanks for coming in today.
For Amy Hansen, the face of Sewing Center West, there's more than 40 years worth of memories woven in machines and fabrics.
Just turned 19. My mother decided to get into this business, and she asked me if I would come to work with her.
Likewise, her husband, Dag Hansen, the shop's technician, has equal but different experience.
There's emotion attached to it. Spent the last 40 years of my life doing that. My father was a furrier, tailor, fashion designer. I guess it was in my blood, in my heritage.
We just kind of clicked.
Though today it's more of a craft, around 100 customers continue seeking their help a month, making Amy and Dag a sort of sewing power couple, advocating for quality over convenience.
Antique machines, when I say antique, I mean over 100 years old, or were built a whole lot better than they are today.
When you spend the least amount of money you can and expect performance, that just never really ever comes to pass.
But quality necessitates maintenance, and being a trade steward requires reason, passion, rare elements, making the future uncertain.
Some people in today's society, they'd rather have the latest and greatest for a new machine versus repairing their old ones.
Finding somebody that has an interest in the trade, as far as in the mechanic end of it, is definitely, a good question. We're still looking for that.
Marcus Kokova, MTN News.
Still to come on the MTN 430 News on Q2. A former Montana State football star turned Atlanta Falcon aims to overcome injury and leave a lasting impression on the NFL. We'll hear from him in just a bit. But first, it's a week of unsettled weather. Jason lets us know what that means right after this.